Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 19 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight here for round 3 of the season at the wonderful Five Flag Speedway down in Pensacola, Florida for another 150 lap event at a half-mile speedway. Tell you what, race fans, if you enjoyed what you saw last week at the Kern County Raceway Park, I'm willing to bet that you will enjoy what you see here tonight. Not particularly quite the same way for these two tracks race. A little bit different in their bankings and their straightaway links here, but both come out to being just about half a mile or 0.8 kilometers in length. And believe it or not, this track actually has more banking than Kern County Raceway Park does, which was a shock to me when I was doing my notes for this race. I was convinced that Kern had more banking, but no. More banking here at the Five Flag Speedway, and that means even more speed for these drivers. Opened up back in 1953, seventh time that the league has been to this track, and there has been 5 different winners so far in the 6 races held at this speedway so far in the ASRC Oval Series over the years. Chase Johnson, Mike Sukup, Jason Gardner, and Brian Sabelski all winners at this track, with Tyler McRae being the only 2-time winner here. And of course, Gardner and Sabelski both running full-time in the Oval Series here. Both of them are going to be looking to try and take home win number 2 here this evening. That said, drivers are making their way down to the starting lineup, so how about we take a look down there and see how things will be shaken up here tonight. Starting out on the pole here this evening, the first time ever in his 80 starts with the ASRC Oval Series, it's going to be the 78 of Mr. Derek Murphy starting out on the front of this one. Starting back in position number 2 in the number 85 machine, that is the driver of the Maconi Setup Shop entry, driver out of Denver, Colorado, multi-time league champion Brian Sabelski. He's starting off position number 2. Back in third, that's going to be the number 93 Motorcraft entry of Jason Gardner, the man who puts this whole show on in the first place. And one of the 2 drivers I was talking about that is looking for win number 2 at this speedway, along with Brian Sabelski just in front of him. But Jason Gardner is going to be rolling off position number 3. Back in fourth, that's going to be the 45 Scooby-Doo entry of Mr. Mark Kluge for K9P Racing, followed by the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan. Back in fifth, driver out of Noonan, Georgia back there. Back in sixth, it's going to be the Dirt TV number 27 of Johnny Bell out of Harmony Township, Pennsylvania, followed by the 188 of Joshua Rudolph in the For the Hobby entry. Back in eighth, that's going to be the number 7 Hello Kitty entry of Kevin Alicia and our current championship points leader here. He's going to be rolling off position number 8. Back in ninth, it's going to be the number 12 of Garrett Hess in the returning fire entry, driver out of Mechanicsville, Maryland, also multi-time champion here this season, or here in this series. Not starting off quite where he wanted to here tonight. He's going to be rolling off in ninth. Back in 10th, it's going to be the number 4 of Daniel Sparks in the Kinetic entry, followed by Michael Sparks, and then John Atkins rounding out the tail end of the field here. Green flag up in the air. We are rolling here at the Five Flag Speedway. So far, so good. Looking around the field here for lap number 1. Nobody's made any big mistakes yet, and we're starting to single file it out just a little bit here. Coming across the line, it is going to be Derek Murphy scored as our race leader here for lap number 1 of the evening. Out of 150 here. We still have a long way left to go here tonight. A little bit of beating and banging here in the mid-pack, but for the most part, folks are keeping it pointed in the right direction here. Currently looking down at Garrett Hess in that 12 machine. Started perhaps a little bit further back than he would have liked to here, but already up +3 from where he qualified. Trying to battle on the outside of Johnny Bell and try and make that +4 here. Not quite able to, as we have a driver into the outside wall back there. That is John Atkins having a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall, but no big damage on that 712 machine. He is still good to go here. Just in front, Michael Sparks battling it out here with the 188 of Joshua Rudolph here side by side for the 10th position. Sparks hitting a little bit loose out the corner, but he manages to hang on to it here. Still 2x2 for this 10th spot as John Atkins just behind, trying to figure out where he wants to go to try and make this move work. But for right now, he's going to back it off just a little bit. Maybe try and settle in a rhythm and see if we can't get some green flag laps clicked in here. Just up ahead, Corey Logan getting moves made on by the 27 and Johnny Bell down on the inside. And side by side, Kevin Alessia. And for a brief moment, that 45 of Mark Kluge. And Kluge going to fall back just a little bit. That's going to allow Alessia to get back down to the inside of him here again in that Hello Kitty entry. And again, a little bit more beating and banging just behind here. A little bit of getting loose. That was Daniel Sparks there. That was a little swervy coming out of the corner. And you can see that 4 machine, the rear end seems to be sliding out just a little bit for him here on corner exit. But Daniel is up +1 from where he qualified. Michael Sparks just behind him. So far, so good. Looking at the main battle on the raceway here as we come across the line. Already 9 laps complete here. As there's another scrape against the outside wall, and Joshua Rudolph has fallen back 3 seconds off the pace, and it looks like he might have steering damage. There are sparks coming out of the right front fender of that thing, and oh yeah, that car is not turning whatsoever. We have some big steering damage on that 188 machine. Green flag still up in the air. He's going to try and bring it around the speedway and bring it on down to pit lane, but that car is just not turning. The right front is definitely snapped off of that racing machine. He brings it down in the grass. He's trying to get it to rotate, and it looks like he is able to get it to turn here just a little bit. He gets it down onto pit lane. No caution flag necessary. Let's maybe try and look back here a little bit, see if we can't figure out what happened to him to give him this damage. It looks like not quite far enough back here, so we'll try and jump back a little bit further and see if we can't figure out what happened to him here. And oh, looks like he just got loose and ended up down in the inside wall, and that's all she wrote for her. That'll be what happened to Joshua Rudolph. He's got that car down on pit lane. It is getting serviced. It is definitely possible to see him come back out here on the raceway, but for now, definitely going to be putting Joshua Rudolph pretty dang far down the pecking order here tonight. How about this battle for the podium here? Jason Gardner leading Brian Sabelski and Garrett Hess here for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They're in a little bit of a bubble right now because Derek Murphy has already put away to a full 1.2 second lead over these 3 drivers, but we have seen time and time again, Gardner, Sabelski, and Hess seem very equally matched with each other here in these ARCA cars. Gardner not necessarily having the luck he's been hoping for in the past couple of races, been having mechanical issues really early on in the goings, but finally great to see him out here being able to turn some laps in the green flag with a fully functioning Motorcraft number 12 or 93 machine. And so far, he's hanging on to the 2nd position, but Sabelski and Garrett Hess are all over that back bumper, and I'd imagine after a while they're not going to quite be playing so nice with each other. That said, Gardner goes a little bit high, and that's going to allow Sabelski to put the nose in there, try and get down the inside. Not quite able to do it here. And now that's going to allow Hess to try and make the move down here. Sabelski maybe overdrove the corner just a little bit trying to get underneath Gardner. That's going to move Garrett Hess up to 3rd now, up +6 from where he qualified here in that number 12 machine. Big moves for the driver out of Mechanicsville, Maryland. I'll tell you what, only 20 laps in the books, so we still have a long way left to go here tonight, but the more Hess and Gardner duke it out with each other, the more Derek Murphy continues to pull away with the race lead. The big question, of course, is how is Derek Murphy doing on tires? Is he going to be able to conserve him with the pace that he is running right now, or are we going to see these 3 drivers all catch up to him pretty dang quickly here? Hess and Sabelski both able to get around Jason Gardner that time by, though, so that would bump Gardner outside the top 3 here. Trying to make the nose work back down underneath the 85, but not quite close enough to make it happen here. And something to keep in mind here with Derek Murphy, this is his very first ever pole position, but this would be his 2nd ever win if he manages to make it happen here. He has 1 other win in the ASRC Oval Series at the Charlotte Motor Speedway back in the mini stock. But this would be his first win at a short track and in a much higher powered car from the mini stock at that. So definitely need to be keeping an eye on that driver, and we'll see how it plays out for him. But right now, Derek Murphy seems to be putting on a bit of a tear here this evening. Further back in the field here, Corey Logan's trying to make some moves down on the inside of Michael Sparks. Michael up there in that Moosehead Logger number 42, that silver car. Corey in the purple and green CZ Robotics entry. Got on the nose down to the inside, but just not quite getting the run they're looking for through the corner here. It definitely seems like Michael has a little bit of an advantage on corner exit, getting more momentum than Corey does, because Corey's having to slow down to get through these corners. But now side by side, but again, still just not quite able to make it stick. But this time by, Corey Logan manages to get the nose just barely ahead. And it looks like Logan might be able to make the pass happen here. Fair enough. Logan's clear. That's going to move them up to the 10th position here. But Sparks isn't out of this battle yet. Still only about 0.3 of a second between the two of them. But it gets a little bit loose out the corner, so that might be all she wrote for this immediate battle here for Michael Sparks. Still, I mean, not even a third of the way through tonight's event. There's still a long way left to go. And speaking of drivers that probably are not quite happy with how much of a race there is left to go, Derek Murphy here, our race leader, starting to get caught up on by Garrett Hess and Brian Sabelski. Murphy's lap times are starting to slow down here. We'll see how they update when they come across the line, but last time by did not look great for the driver of the 78 machine. Sure enough, coming across the line, a 17.08 for Murphy, a 17.01 for Garrett Hess, a 16.96 for Brian Sabelski. So Sabelski actually the fastest of the bunch here inside of your top three, and all three of them are starting to pull away from Jason Gardner. Jason's fallen back to a nearly 2-second gap between himself and Brian Sabelski. But still a long way left to go here in tonight's event. We'll have to see how the pit strategies play out for these drivers. And who knows? We might just see the leaderboard get flipped up on its head here when we get through pit stops. Assuming they're done under the green flag. You never know. There could totally be a caution, but I'm not really holding my bets on that. Despite the fact that this track is the 5 Flag Speedway, we've never had more than 4 cautions at this track, and actually every race we've had here, except for the most recent one with the 4 cautions, was 0 cautions or 1 caution. That said, Garrett Hess, Brian Sabelski both going to make the moves here on Derek Murphy. That's going to bump him back to 3rd. And for the first time here tonight, we have a new race leader. So that will be an extra bonus point put in Garrett Hess's back pocket here. But coming into tonight's event, looking at the point standings here, of course, Kevin Alessia was the points leader coming into tonight's event. Mark Kluge back in 2nd, Rudolph in 3rd. Then you see Brian Sabelski in 4th right now, only 1 point over Garrett Hess, who is back in 5th. And the driver we were just talking about, Derek Murphy, is back in 7th, about 5 points behind Sabelski and Hess in the championship standings right now. But still very early goings in the season. Of course, a 12-week-long season, and we are only in the middle of week 3 right now, so things might be looking very different here over the course of the remaining 9 weeks we have here. But I think we've had some very unexpected drivers in the front of the championship standings. Speaking of unexpected, though, we were just talking about how rare cautions seem to be at this speedway. We do have 1 caution on the track here, and it's going to be for the number 45 Scooby-Doo entry of Mark Kluge. Fortunately, I'm not seeing too much damage here on that racing machine, so he should be good to keep it going here. We'll see if he pulls it on down to pit lane, and it looks like he will be keeping it out, so no, oh, well, changed his mind. He's coming down pit lane. Let's take a look back. Let's figure out what happened to the driver of the Scooby-Doo machine. Heading through turns 3 and 4 here, and this might just be a repeat of what we saw to Joshua Rudolph, and yes, that is exactly what it is. just a much, much more forgiving impact than we saw with Joshua Rudolph. Of course, Rudolph, with that impact, we saw him just smash the right front into the concrete barrier there. Kluge a little bit more forgiving, just a little bit of a kind of a love tap against the front wall there. So Kluge should be plenty fine to keep going here. We'll see if the mechanics say anything scary while he's down on pit lane, but he should be fine to keep going. Sure enough, he did come down pit lane. The crew said everything is A-okay. So he's back out on the track. He is being scored one lap down, but he is still very much still in the competition. Joshua Rudolph still on pit lane. He is not retired from tonight's event, still getting service done to that car, but he has officially been in his pit box getting serviced for a full 9 minutes now. Currently being scored on lap number 10 here for Rudolph. But of course, the leaders are now crossing the line to have completed lap 41. So only 31 laps down for Joshua Rudolph right now. If we have enough cautions, surely he can make that all back up. But we're going to bunch them up 2 by 2 and try this thing once again. Going to be 42 laps completed when we take the green flag. Pace car is off, green flag up in the air. Garrett Hess leads us across the line together with Brian Sabelski. So far, so good on this restart as we stay 2 by 2 all through turns 1 and 2 here. Still 2 by 2 through 3 and 4 here as well, but it's going to be Hess that has the advantage over Sabelski, and he's going to come up. Sabelski a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall. I think I saw Gardner scrape the outside wall there as well. And we might have a car around back here. Michael Sparks is stopped down on the apron, and Corey Logan is stopped up on the high line, and John Atkins looks like he's stopped as well. Green flag is still up in the air here for the time being, but that was a multi-car incident right there. Yeah, green flag is still out for the time being. Several drivers involved in that one. In just a moment here, we'll take a look back and figure out what happened. And now the caution flag is out. It looks like race control finally saw what all went down, brought out the caution. All drivers were able to keep rolling. In some capacity, I say that Mark Kluge has just come to a stop at the outside wall here. And he's going to bring that car on down to pit lane. So let's take a look back, try and figure out what happened to bring out this caution flag on that restart. Take a look down at the C0 box 24 of Corey Logan behind the 712, and oh! Corey goes around, Sparks goes around, and there's the 45 of Mark Kluge. All three drivers get it rolling, but you can definitely hear the damage on Mark Kluge's racing machine. And also, he's missing a front bumper, so that's a slight issue as well. Definitely seems like these tires, or not necessarily the tires, but the tire rods seem to be very prone to breaking on these ARCA cars. But it seems like very minor damage for Logan and Michael Sparks. Mostly Mark Kluge was the victim here in this one. So coming back to the live view, Mark Kluge and Corey Logan both came down to pit lane. Logan only down there for 15 seconds, so it looks like probably some standard service on that 24 car. Mark Kluge is still down there, has been down there for a minute and a half. I don't know if he's going to be able to bring that car out there anytime soon, considering he got almost the exact same damage as Joshua Rudolph, and Rudolph has now been on pit lane for 12 minutes and 30 seconds here. So we'll give it a minute and see what race control says about this restart. We did get at least one lap complete, so I believe this should be a double file restart and not a single file one. Sure enough, we are lining them back up 2 by 2 here, so this will be a double file restart here. Of course, in the ASRC Oval Series, If subsequent cautions happen without a single lap of green flag racing completed, the next caution will be single file, and it will stay single file until we can get at least one green flag lap completed. It's going to be Hess on the inside, Sabelski on the outside on this restart. 50 laps completed as we cross the line. Green flag up in the air once again, and Hess off to a really good run down in turns 1 and 2 here. So far, so good. Looking around the field, no big oopsies yet. Of course, always the potential for something to go wrong here. It's a little bit early for me to be saying it, but we got across the line, 1 green flag lap complete. So if another caution comes out, we still will be double file here. Mostly single filed out up at the front, but the main battle, first battle side by side here is Kevin Alessia and Derek Murphy. Murphy, your pole sitter and race leader for the first 35 laps of this race, now falling all the way back to the 7th position. Kevin Alessia moving his way up to 6, up +2 from where he qualified. Just in front of him, Daniel Sparks in that Kinetics entry is up +5 from where he qualified. Now it looks like about single filed out around the speedway here as everyone starts to settle into a little bit of a rhythm here this evening. Hopefully we should be able to get a good long green flag run in here for these drivers as Garrett Hess pulling away up at the race lead up to about a 0.6 of a second lead. Still about 0.6 seconds back to Jason Gardner as well, back in third. So it looks like Jason, maybe letting those tires cool down a little bit under these subsequent yellows, has gotten some speed back in that race car. One car hard up in the outside wall. That is the 42 there of Michael Sparks. That's going to immediately fall back to the 10th position here, losing the spot to Corey Logan in that CZ Robotics entry. Not really seeing any damage done to that 42 machine though, so nothing too catastrophic there, but falling back those positions going to be a little bit of a pain for him to make them back up. Of course, Derek Murphy, we were just talking about him. He was battling it out with Kevin Alessia side by side, still battling it out with him. Coming across the line here, looking at the lap times, Murphy was faster than Alessia by about 0.06 of a second there. 17:04 for Derek Murphy, 17:10 for Kevin Alessia. Kevin seemed to be very fast in practice. I believe he was in 3rd place in pre-race practice, but that practice speed so far doesn't seem to quite be translating over to him how he quite wants it to, but still up inside the top 6, looking to potentially move his way up in the top 5 if he can figure out a way around Daniel Sparks. Not all that bad of a place to be in, considering that 2 of our drivers are still down on pit lane getting repairs. Joshua Rudolph now at 16 minutes of work done on that race car. Mark Kluge at 5 minutes of repairs here now. Michael Sparks moving down to the inside of Corey Logan down here, back for the 9th position. There might have been a little bit of a tap there between the 2 of them. Not 100% positive on it. Michael Sparks down on the inside. Looks like he is going to make the move work here on that CZ Robotics 24. I say that he gets loose, has to get on the brakes to keep the car from spinning, loses the spot to Corey Logan just like that. And once again, he finds himself back in the 10th position. He's got to make it work once again to get around that CZ Robotics 24. Further up in the field, Derek Murphy is putting the pressure on Kevin Alessia. They're nearly close enough to tap the rear bumper. Trying to make the move work on the outside though, which is definitely interesting to see, because it seems like a lot of the success we've seen out of these drivers so far has been down on the inside line, but sure enough, Murphy trying to maybe can't see if some clean air on the nose will help him out here and get that move made on the outside line. Coming across the line here, let's see how the lap times update. 17:03 for Alessia, 17:09 for Murphy. So Alessia a little bit faster that time by in that Hello Kitty car, but it is definitely very evenly matched between these 2 drivers right now as they battle it out for the 6th position. A little bit of a wiggle for Murphy coming out of turn number 4 though. That was a little bit scary. Able to hang on to it though. Just up ahead, running a new paint scheme here tonight. That's the Kinetics entry for Daniel Sparks. Up +5 from where he qualified, running in the 5th position here. about pretty equally matched here. Johnny Bell half a second ahead of him. Kevin Alessia half a second behind. Coming across the line, coming through the front straightaway here. We'll look at Sparks lap times here as well. So for this mid-pack battle, it's a 17:09 for Johnny Bell, a 17:22 for Sparks, a 17:24 for Alessia, and a 17:17 for Derek Murphy. That time across the line. Alessia and Murphy right now, your two closest drivers on the raceway, and Alessia just scraped against the outside wall there a little bit. That would cost him a little bit of ground, but definitely not a hard scrape by any means. All in all, looking very evenly spread out here. There's a driver scraping against the inside wall there, it looked like. John Atkins might have had a little bit of a loose moment coming on turn number 4 there. Keeping it pointed in the right direction, but he is now about 2.5 seconds behind Derek Murphy. And Corey Logan almost 4 seconds back from John Atkins, so Logan might have had some issues there as well. Michael Sparks scraped against the outside wall coming out of turn number 4 there. Michael Sparks nearly a second and a half behind Corey Logan here. The thing's definitely getting very spread out at the tail end of the field, and things are getting pretty decently spread out up at the front here as well. Hess and Sabelski are about 0.3 of a second from each other, but then Jason Gardner is nearly a full 3 seconds back, leading this 5-car battle for the mid-pack here. Gardner on back through to Derek Murphy, all roughly under a blanket with each other. Gardner a little bit further ahead, as now Alessia is starting to put the pressure down on Daniel Sparks. Derek Murphy has backed off just a little bit, and Sparks wiggling coming out of turn number 2. Getting it as low as he can down to the apron, drifts up a little bit on corner exit, but Alessia is not close enough to capitalize on it. And while they're not up in frame, coming across the start-finish line, Garrett Hess leads the way as we are officially 75 laps in the books, halfway through tonight's event here in Pensacola, Florida. 2 cautions in the books. And so far so good looking around the field. Alessia is still trying to figure out how to make a move here on Daniel Sparks, and Daniel might just have the door open enough for him to do it. He peeks the nose down to the inside, down on the bottom raceway, and it looks like he is there. Sparks having to make the high line work, not quite working the way he wants it to. Still just barely had the advantage across the line there. It looks like this time around is where we're going to see Alessia start to pull ahead. Still side by side between the two of them here, and now Daniel Sparks drifts up a little bit, and it looked like Derek Murphy was about to try and punch through together with Kevin, but not quite close enough to make it happen. Sure enough, Daniel drops back down into line here, so Murphy not going to be able to capitalize for the time being. But still, these three all just absolutely under a blanket with each other. Only about 1/10 to 2/10 of a second dividing the three of them. We'll see how the lap times look coming across the line, but I imagine that they are going to be very similar between these three drivers. 17:11 for Alessia, 17:26 for Sparks, 17:34 for Derek Murphy. So maybe a little bit more spread out here than I thought. And just up in front of them, Johnny Bell is starting to close in on Jason Gardner. And Johnny running some new colors here tonight in that Dirt TV number 27. Same paint scheme that you usually see here for that driver, just instead of black and red, it's blue and red here tonight. Unless it's always been blue and red, and I've just somehow never noticed it, which would be very embarrassing. But I'm pretty positive that Johnny's always run a black and red paint scheme, and this blue here is a little bit new for him. But he's doing pretty solid here tonight. He's starting to put the pressure down on the number 93 of Jason Gardner. Both these two drivers, league administrators here at ASRC. Johnny does all of the graphical work that you see up on our social media pages, the winners' photos, the standing posts, all that sorts of stuff. And Johnny Bell is the man responsible for that, whereas Jason does the actual organizing of the Oval Series and hosting all the races, figuring out the schedules, that sort of stuff. That's all Jason's deal. So big shout out to both those drivers for helping put on the show that we get to broadcast here every Monday night. And of course, can't talk about ASRC without mentioning our friends over at SM Racing Products. Unfortunately, neither of the SM Racing Products founding members are here in tonight's event, that being Jeremy Morrow and Garrett Streets, being the S and the M of SM Racing Products, but they've been on board here with the ASRC Oval Series as the title sponsor for a pretty dang long time now, and a lot of the drivers here in the series have vouched for the quality of their equipment. Just two guys that weren't quite happy with what was available on the sim racing market for button boxes and gear of that nature, so they decided, you know what, we'll just make it ourselves. And we have a driver up on the outside wall. That is Michael Sparks. Caution flag out on the raceway. Michael Sparks up high. Derek Murphy is down on pit lane. That'll be caution flag number 3 on the raceway. Let's take a look back and figure out what happened here. Which I feel like is the question of the century that we're always asking ourselves. What exactly happened here, and why are we looking at Garrett Hess? That is not the driver that was involved in that incident. That was Derek Murphy that we're looking for, and again, a repeat of what happened to Mark Kluge and Joshua Rudolph. Spin down to the inside of the track and broken left front suspension. Looks like we are going to see a very large majority of the field take the dive on down to pit lane here. Everyone, with the exception of Johnny Bell and Corey Logan, is down on pit lane. Let's see how these drivers make their way out of the pits. Looking like tires for all these drivers. Definitely going to be tires and fuel. They need fuel to make it to the end. Garrett Hess going to be the driver that wins the battle off of pit lane. That's going to be Sabelski, then Gardner, then Alicia, then Daniel Sparks. And then who is that coming out in front of them? Michael Sparks, who is not on the lead lap right now. Everyone else still out on pit lane. Corey changing their mind, though. Corey is going to make the call to come down this time around. Johnny Bell still electing to stay out in that Dirt TV number 27. He is committed to the bit, as he always is. Anytime there's a driver that wants to do an alternative pit strategy, it's basically always Johnny Bell in that Dirt TV racing entry. So we'll see how it works out for him. He's going to be restarting this race on... The lights go out. Yes, they do. So he's going to be restarting this race on 93 lap old tires when everyone behind him are on brand new ones. Let's I mean, we're not going to say anything negative. I'm just saying we might need to hope and pray a little bit on this restart for Mr. Johnny Bell, because he has several multi-time league champions right behind him, along with a multi-time race winner at this track, and our current championship point standards leader all right behind him. Green flag up in the air. Let's see how he fares on this restart. All in all, not that bad. He immediately gets passed by Garrett Hess on the outside, but otherwise hangs on to it pretty well. We'll see if we can't complete this lap under the green flag. We are nearly 3 wide back there, as Kevin Alicia, Daniel Sparks, and Jason Gardner thought about sending it 3 wide there, but probably wisely decided to back out of it here. Sabelski and Gardner nose to tail just up in front of this battle between Alicia and Sparks. Johnny still running in the second position here, so those tires aren't as worn out as I thought, but Sabelski is definitely all over the back bumper there, trying to make a move to get around him. Not quite able to figure out how to make it work, because the high line really just does not seem to be working for drivers here. No, he's going to stick the nose in there. He's going to tap the rear end of Johnny Bell. Just a little bit of nudge of saying, hey, I'm here. I have nearly 100 lap newer tires than you do, and I would really appreciate it if I could go by you. Now Sabelski's trying the high line. He's going to make it work. Gardner's going to follow Sabelski through on the high line. And it looks like it's going to work for Sabelski here as well. Will we see Alicia try and make the high line work here as well, knowing that Daniel Sparks is all over his back bumper? Not quite. Jason Gardner going very, very, very wide coming out of turn number 4 there, though. Everyone a little bit bottlenecked, trying to figure out how they best want to try and work around Johnny Bell here. But Johnny's really being able to hold on even on those old tires. Now Gardner manages to get around him. Kevin Alicia getting around as well. Then we have Daniel Sparks, John Atkins, Corey Logan all in a bunch right behind that number 27 machine. Last time by, Brian Sabelski set his fastest lap, and it looked like the fastest lap of the race for Sabelski as a whole, a 16.56 for that driver last time by. And both him and Sabelski is just absolutely pulled away from the rest of the field here. A 1.3 second lead for Hess, then 1.3 seconds back from Sabelski to Gardner in third. Then once again, it's the same sort of deal where these 5 drivers are just all under a blanket with each other here. Single filed out just a little bit, but all within 3 to 4 tenths of each other. As lots of drivers are scraping the outside wall here now that they have these new tires put on them. John Atkins now trying to be the driver to make the move beneath Johnny Bell. Not quite close enough to make it happen here. But Johnny checks up a little bit, and now they're making contact with each other. There's a driver up on the outside wall. That is Michael Sparks in the outside wall on that 42. Corey Logan following just behind. Green flag still up in the air. Everyone's keeping it pointed in the right direction, but that did spread things out just a little bit. Now it's just Gardner, Alicia, and Daniel Sparks under this little blanket with each other. Johnny Bell has fallen back to about 2 seconds behind those 2 drivers. It definitely seems like those tires are starting to show their age here now. Worked for a little bit on that restart, but definitely didn't stay for him. As we have a driver around, that's Kevin Alicia, stopped in turn number 1. Caution flag out on the speedway for the 4th time here tonight. Tell you what, race fans, we've now tied the record for most cautions that the ASRC Oval Series has had at 5 Flags Speedway. We may very well finally see the 5 yellow flags fabled in this track's name. For reference, that's not actually why 5 Flags Speedway is 5 Flags Speedway. It's named after the 5 different countries, governments, whatever you want to call them, that have owned the land that 5 Flags Speedway resides on. But let's take a look back down here at Kevin Alicia. We'll see what all went down. Coming out of turn number 4, things look... Oh, nope. It's the same deal. We've seen it time and time and time again. Getting loose coming out of turn number 4, and the rear end just snaps around on him. Let's take a ride on board with the driver of the number 7 machine. And this is not the replay we're looking for, race fans. This should be a little bit more like it. Throttles it up, and the rear tires just snap out from underneath them. 4 cautions, now the 4th victim that we have seen this exact spin happen to. That'll be what brings out caution flag number 4. Looks like Kevin did come down pit lane down there to have it looked at. No, he actually stayed out. No, never mind. Kevin has stayed out on the raceway, but it didn't look like too bad of an impact for the driver of that 7 machine. Did we have any takers on pit lane, though, under this yellow? Looks like Johnny Bell did come down and get new tires put on that racing machine, as well as Corey Logan also came down under this yellow. Otherwise, everyone else stayed out, and we are now lining them back up once again, 2 by 2. Garrett Hess and Brian Sabelski leading the field again to green. Then it will be Jason Gardner, Daniel Sparks for row 2, John Atkins, Kevin Alicia, row 3, Johnny Bell, Corey Logan for row number 4, and those are your 8 drivers still on the lead lap here. going to be 110 laps completed as we come across the line. 40 laps to go here in Pensacola, Florida. Garrett Hess once again sailing off into the sunset as Gardner comes up alongside Sabelski and tries to make the move for the second position here. And here comes the 4 of Daniel Sparks. He's going to give Jason a little bit of a nudge there in turn number 3. Daniel Sparks now moving his way on up into the podium here for the time being, but Jason's not going to let that position go without a fight. He is still full setting it here on the outside line. He's actually going to clear that 4 machine, hang on to the 3rd position of the podium. And Kevin Alessia, despite that spin and bringing out that caution, he is still running back in 5th, and it definitely still seems like he has speed underneath the hood of that race car, right on the tail of the 4 here of Daniel Sparks. But already Hess and Sabelski are starting to pull away from the field here. We'll take a look down at these 2 drivers, see how this battle is shaping up for them, because really, we haven't had our camera focused on the leaders all that much here tonight. Fairly equally matched here between Sabelski and Hess, but Sabelski gets up against the outside wall, scrapes a little bit there. Last time by a 16.7 for Hess, a 16.68 for Sabelski. So even with the slight scrape against the outside wall, Sabelski was marginally faster than Garrett Hess by a couple of hundredths of a second. We'll see how it shapes up this time around and see if the story changes at all. And this time, Sabelski 200ths of a second slower than Garrett Hess, 16.73, 16.75. Very equally matched here between these two, and a 16.73 for Gardner as well. So Gardner is not out of this battle for the race lead either. But it does look like Hess is starting to get his footing underneath him, and he's starting to slowly pull up just a little bit of a gap over Sabelski here. 16.75 that time for Garrett Hess, 16.8 for Brian Sabelski, 16.9 for Gardner. So it looks like that one lap where Hess was slower was just a little bit of an off lap for him here. That time Sabelski barely having the advantage again by only 0.03 of a second. So we are talking tiny little fractions of a second between these drivers in terms of lap time, but Sabelski is going to have to start really nailing some consistently faster lap times than Garrett Hess if he wants to catch up here. Only 30 laps to go here tonight, and I mean, with it being almost completely equally matched between Hess and Sabelski right now, I don't think he's going to be able to make it back up here unless something changes for one of these 2 drivers. A little bit further back, Jason Gardner in that number 93 machine, running where he qualified right now. So all in all, considering the fiery, destructive sort of situations Jason's found himself in the last couple of races, I think that running pretty solidly inside of the podium right now is a very good evening for that number 93 of Jason Gardner. Of course, you got to think back to the start of this race when we were talking about the previous winners here. Sabelski and Gardner are both on that list. Garrett Hess is not, so Hess is going for his first win here at 5 Flags in the ASRC Oval Series. Sabelski and Gardner are both going for win number 2. The gap is steadily growing between 2nd and 3rd right now. Sabelski is pulled up to a nearly 2-second gap over Gardner and the rest of the field here. A little further back, Daniel Sparks in that 4 machine up +6 from where he qualified in the Kinetics entry. So he's been making some big gains. And there's Johnny Bell on newer tires than Kevin Alessia, making the move down the inside. Kevin gets a little bit loose coming across the start-finish line there. Johnny Bell moves his way up into the 5th. Kevin bumped back down to the 6th position. I believe in the previous 2 races, Kevin Alessia is the only driver that got a top 5 in both. So falling back to 6th position, not what Kevin's wanting to see, because I think right now his main goal is just keeping this streak of top 5 finishes alive. But now within 25 to go here, the clock is really ticking for these drivers. Of course, there is always the option of another caution flag coming out, but it's not something these drivers can afford to bank on. Of course, at the same time, I'm sure there's someone hoping that we do get the proverbial 5th flag and break the record for cautions at this speedway. And who knows, maybe we'll even see our first ever bout of overtime here in the ASRC Oval Series for season number 19. Lots of what-ifs linger in the air over these drivers, and as we've said time and time again here in this series, nothing is over until the checkered flag flies, and you can't just relax and assume things are going to go your way, because there's always the opportunity for something to just go absolutely catastrophically wrong. Johnny Bell, though, going on a little bit of a tear here on newer tires than the entire rest of the field. He got around Kevin Alessia, and he is starting to pretty steadily catch up to Daniel Sparks here. Got it down to below 0.3 of a second last time by a 17 flat for Johnny, a 17.09 for Daniel Sparks. That 27 machine is steadily catching up here to Daniel. And Daniel gets loose out of 4. That's going to allow Johnny to catch even further, but will he be able to make any sort of opportunity out of it is the big question. For the time being, looks like the answer is no. 18 laps left to go here now. Garrett Hess still leading our race by about half of a second over Brian Sabelski here, as Johnny is just all over the back bumper of Daniel Sparks here, trying to figure out how he's going to make this move. He's definitely got the pace to do it. It's just a matter of figuring out how it's going to happen. He's going to try and make the outside line work. For the time being, it's not quite going to happen for him here, though. Falls back to nearly 0.4 of a second behind, but he gets back in his rhythm. He's still keeping it within now about 0.3 of a second as he catches back up. 16 laps left to go, though. Clock is ticking to make any final moves that you're going to be able to do here. Now down to 0.2 of a second, and then in a race like that, it goes back up to 3. Every time he starts getting close, he ends up having to back off just a little bit. Obviously not wanting to make contact with the back of that Ford machine, because there is the clean race bonus to consider. With how tight the point championship right now, every point you can grab, this is a huge deal, and you don't want to lose out on points from unclean driving with another driver. Of course, bonus points aside, ASRC is a league that has been very strongly founded on respectful racing, so it's not a big shock that these drivers are trying their best, at least, to avoid making contact with each other. Sometimes it's inevitable. It is short track racing here after all, and it's short track racing with 12 laps left to go. Eventually, cars are going to touch each other. Now down below 0.2 of a second between the two of them. And it looks like Johnny should be able to make the move. All he needs is Daniel to push up a little bit higher than he intends to, and he can get the nose down the inside, make it happen, and that's what's going to happen here. Johnny gets down to the inside of the Ford machine of Daniel Sparks, but he has to get on the brakes enough to get the car to rotate all the way to the bottom. He loses a little bit of ground. But heading through turns 3 and 4 here with the big double high five up in the air, Johnny Bell is going to make the move on Daniel Sparks. Still neck and neck between these two drivers, but Johnny going to be able to clear him. That's going to move Daniel back to the 5th position. 1.3 seconds back from Jason Gardner, though. I don't think Johnny's going to be able to close up that big of a gap without a caution flag flying. But 4th place, definitely no laughing matter for the driver of that 27 machine. Up at the front here with 9 to go, Garrett Hess continues to lead the way here at the Five Flag Speedway. About half a second between himself and Sabelski here. Like a lot of times last time by, a 17.09 for Hess, a 17.16 for Brian Sabelski. All Hess has to do is about 3.5 more miles of consistent laps, and he will be good to take home the checkered flag here this evening. Hess comes into tonight's event with no wins to his name so far this season. Sabelski has won 1 race. Daniel Sparks has won 1 race. But so far, Hess is winless here in season number 19. which coming off of multiple championships to his name, kind of a surprise to see, but big high five up in the air. 5 more laps here to go here at the Five Flag Speedway, and the gap is growing between Hess and Zabelski. Now 2/3 of a second between the two of them, and just like that, that's going to grow up to about 7/10 of a second between the two of them. So Zabelski is steadily falling back here. Is a lap car just ahead. I believe that is Michael Sparks up in front of him in that 42. Sure enough, with 4 to go, I don't believe that will be an issue. Make that 3 to go here as Hess crosses the line. And we just heard a car motor expire. I believe that was probably one of these drivers getting repairs down on pit lane, considering the green flag is still up in the air, but always a scary noise to hear. Now 2 to go here at the Five Flag Speedway. As long as a caution flag does not come out in the next quarter of a mile, Garrett Hess will take the white flag and he will be smooth sailing to the end of tonight's event. Coming out of turn number 4, white flag up in the air officially now. It doesn't matter if there's a wreck anymore. The race will stay green to the end, and with an 0.8 of a second lead here over Brian Zabelski, it looks like Garrett Hess is going to get it here tonight. And sure enough, coming across the line, Garrett Hess takes home his first checkered flag of season number 19. Zabelski going to bring it home back in second. Jason Gardner back in third. Johnny Bell in fourth. Daniel Sparks rounding out your top 5 here this evening. Garrett Hess getting it done here tonight in that return and fire paint scheme. He's had some thoughts and opinions on this new ARCA car, but he imagined to get a win with it one way or another. Gonna burn it down there on the front straightaway. Celebrate win number 1 here to his name, and he will add his name to the ever-growing list of drivers that have won at this raceway here in the ASRC Oval Series. That said, race fans, don't go anywhere. We will be back here in just a moment with some words with your top 3 finishers. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Five Flag Speedway. 150 laps in the books here in Pensacola, Florida. And it's going to be none other than Mr. Garrett Hess taking home the first checkered flag of his for season number 19 in this ARCA car. Garrett, how are you feeling here tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good, all things considered. I thought I drove a pretty good race.
Yeah, pretty solid run for you here tonight. You qualified all the way back in the 9th position. Were you feeling good about this one coming into tonight's event?
Well, qualifying, I completely screwed up. I tried to get a fast start on my flying lap and then completely slid the tires and got the slow slap out of anyone who set a time. But I was feeling pretty good entering this race. I've had experience with this combo, so but I didn't know it would translate to a win, but I knew that as long as I kept the car clean, it would have translated to a pretty good finish.
Yeah, it definitely seemed to work out for you here tonight. You had some solid speed. You managed to make up 8 spots under the green flag, which is always pretty impressive to see. But with 150 laps in the books here at a short track, I know you mentioned last week you were hoping to see a little bit more in the terms of the intermediates and stuff. Next week, heading to Rockingham Speedway. How do you feel about heading on over there?
Buckingham's interesting because it's a tire burner and it's really all about how you save the tires. It's definitely going to be an interesting race. It's not really an intermediate since it's right on the border of like one mile, but it's essentially an intermediate track. But I have high hopes for it. I'm hoping for a good finish.
Definitely sounds like it'll be a fun one to watch. And then after that, it does continue, and we head on over to Charlotte Motor Speedway after that. So you have that to look forward to as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping that will be a good race. In other leagues, Charlotte has been kind of a dumpster fire, but with the updates to this car and everything, I'm hoping it'll be a little bit better.
Definitely looks good to me. I look forward to seeing you out there for it. How are you feeling about your champions prospects now that you do have a win under your under your belt here?
Well, I still think it's going to be really close between me and Brian, especially with this schedule. I mean, he had some good speed. He was keeping me on my toes that entire last run. So I know it's going to be a good season. But it's too early to tell since we're on what like I believe race 3 out of 12. So you never know till the end.
Sure enough, still a long way left to go, but so far things have been looking pretty good for you, and that definitely good to get a win this early on in the season. For now, though, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Hess. Who do you want to thank for finally getting a checker flag here in season 19?
I want to thank you and Jason for putting on the broadcast and putting on the league. Wouldn't be possible without y'all. I want to thank everyone at Team Watson Racing. Great group of guys over there. Setups for pretty much any car. Team Watson Racing Setups.com. I want to thank Parker White for making the setup today. I want to thank Mark Frempong for giving me Parker's setup because it was a custom setup. It wasn't an iRacing setup ran, but it was a lot of fun. Drove just like how I remembered it. I want to thank Livewire, great speed thrash metal band from Australia. Check out their latest album, Returning Fire. But besides that, I want to thank my brother for giving me something to wake up towards in the morning. And that's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the win, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Rockingham.
Yes, sir. I'll see you then.
And finishing back here in position number 2 in that number 85 machine, Mr. Brian Sabelski, not quite able to make it win number 2 in the record books here tonight, but still a very solid finish for you here this evening. So how are you feeling here tonight?
I'm thinking Garrett. He's still got to go through that tech barn here at Five Flags. So who knows? Maybe he doesn't win. Maybe they find something wrong with one of his parts or something like that. It's like a millimeter too thick or something. I'm having a good time, but for those who know with the snowball derby, about the tech barn and how they tear things down. But I think we're doing okay. Still got a second. Wish we could have won, but hey, um, it is what it is. There's just it's really tough to necessarily win on some of these tracks, and tried to do our best tonight. Tried to keep it nice and close, and we did that. I don't know. I just probably just didn't have enough at the end there to really keep up with Garrett. I think we were falling off just a little bit toward the end of the race there.
Well, you certainly seem to have some speed underneath you at these short tracks. How do you feel about going to the bigger speedways in these next couple of races? Do you think that you'll still have that speed with you?
Yeah, do pretty good at a lot of the intermediates as well in this car. So it'll be fine. I think we'll be okay. I'm not really too worried about it. Just got to keep her clean. I think that's my number one concern. Making sure that we don't bin it, put it in the wall, and not finished, because that to me is going to be, I think it's going to be job one. We'll just be, finish his races, finish as best you can. It's a long season. We're only on week 3, right? So got a lot of time to sort everything out.
Yeah, still a long time left to go, and I'm definitely curious to see how the points sort of shake out as we get later into the season, because right now the championship is incredibly close between a lot of people, and a lot of people that we don't necessarily see up towards the front. So
yeah, but that's cool though. It's good to see a lot of people. Like tonight, Derek got pole, so that's always good to see. It's just really it's good that there's a lot of different possibilities for people to be competitive, and for the health of the league, it's really good. And that makes me happy.
yeah, definitely seems like we have a lot to be looking forward to still here this season. For now, though, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who do you want to thank for making this finish happen for you?
All right. Got our update spiel here. So, of course, thanks Marconi Setup Shop, official setup shop of NASCAR. Good group of people. Always good to have them on board. SM Racing Products. Garrett and Jeremy do a great job with their button boxes. Mine's still working great after all the stuff I put it through. So check them out. Thanks for all they do for sponsoring and everything. Folks at Dragon Rose Coffee, great coffee, local company to me. So glad to support them. Coupon code Nihon Tiger for 10% off your order at dragonroast.coffee. Everyone hanging out on Twitch, hello. Nice, good to have you here. Aiden, of course, for doing all the broadcasting. Everyone hanging out in Aiden's chat, hello. And I'll let you go so you can talk to Jason.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Five Flags.
At Rocky Camp, but yes.
Oh yeah, Rockingham. I'm tired. You know what I mean.
It's okay. I get you.
And finishing back here in position number 3, Mr. Jason Gardner, the man who organizes this all thing and writes the schedule. So Jason, we're going to Five Flags again next week, right?
Oh yeah, well the rest of the season we're going to be going to Five Flags.
There you go. I like it. I mean, you got a podium here tonight, so how are you feeling about your race here this evening?
I'm feeling pretty good. I finished a whole lot better than I did last week, and did a whole lot way more laps this week than I did last week, so feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, definitely good to break that little bit of a bad streak you had going last week. Of course, next week we're getting a little bit bigger in terms of the track sizes, so do you think the speed that you had here tonight will be translating over there?
Hopefully, because Rockingham is a local home track, so I'm definitely going to at least try to get a top 3, if not a win there. If I have to, I'll actually practice all week, try to find every little speed I can.
Definitely sounds to me like a driver we need to be keeping an eye on next week. Of course, I mean, you had your little unfortunate event last week. How are you feeling for the championship as a whole, and like what sort of goals do you have for yourself here this season?
For the championship, well, I'm glad we do have drop weeks. So as long as I finish good the rest of the week, that last week will nullify itself out. But as a championship as a whole, to be honest, both Brian and Hess are going to have bad luck the rest of the season, even for me to even try to compete with the points. Both of those are on a completely different zip code.
Well, we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, there's always the slight little element of chaos in racing, and I mean, you've seen the point standing so far. It's been very competitive all throughout the field. And like I was telling Sabelski, we have a lot of drivers that we don't traditionally see up towards the front of the point standings, up in the front of the point standings right now. So I think there's a lot of stories we're going to be needing to keep an eye on for the rest of this season.
Oh, for sure. This this car is very easy to drive, and also the tires don't fall off as much as other cars. So naturally we are going to start seeing more drivers, which that's definitely a good thing, because it is very surprising when I see Johnny Bell in my rearview mirror for more than a couple laps now. But yeah, it's really healthy for this series to have more than just a handful of people run up front and get pole. Something I'm very happy about.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how the rest of this season plays out here. But for now, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Gardner. Who do you want to thank for making this podium happen here tonight?
First and foremost, I like to thank you for us streaming this league. You've been streaming for I keep losing count, years now. Someone do definitely have to appreciate. Also, like to give a big shout out to SM Racing. They make very good products. Even I've got my button box, and as much as I put through it, it still works. And first and foremost, well, lastly, I do like to thank everybody who's out there watching, and everybody who race, because without the ones watching, the ones racing, none of this would be possible.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium to your name, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Rockingham.
Looking forward to seeing you next week as well.
You heard it here first, folks, your top 3 finishers here this evening. But of course, those weren't the only 3 drivers present here in tonight's event. So how about we take a look down at our unofficial race results as they stand here. Of course, there is always the option for post-race penalties, but let's be real, we haven't seen a post-race penalty in like years. So I'd imagine we're probably not going to be seeing any. As they stand right now, though, Garrett Hess was your race winner here tonight in that number 12 machine, followed by Brian Zabelski in second and Jason Gardner rounding out the podium here tonight. Then back and forth, it's that Dirt TV 27 of Johnny Bell with the 4 machine of Daniel Sparks rounding out the tail end of the top 5 here. Then back in 6th, it's that Dorian Motorsports number 7 of Kevin Alicia, followed by the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan. Then we have John Atkins in the 712 machine back in 8th. Michael Sparks back in 9th with Derek Murphy in the number 78 machine, our pole sitter here this evening, rounding out the 10th position. Then back in 11th, we have the 45 of Mark Kluge, and rounding out the tail end of the field of the in the 188 K9P racing entry, that's going to be none other than Mr. Joshua Rudolph. That said, that's just about all we've got here from tonight's event at the Five Flag Speedway. 150 laps in the books. It's definitely been a fun one here this evening. Next week, heading on over to the Rockingham Speedway for 125 laps. Then after that, going to be heading to Charlotte Motor Speedway for 100 laps. And then we end off July at the Irwindale Speedway for 150 laps there as well. That said, thank you all for tuning in here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a good evening.